"Uncle, can you give me your daughter?" While playing on the slide with my daughter, a little boy suddenly asked me this. I smiled and replied to him, "She's my precious, of course I can't give her to you." Then if she died, would you be very sad?" When I heard this question, I suddenly became alert. I come to this children's playground often, but I've never seen this boy before. I suspected he might be an accomplice of child traffickers, so I immediately left with my daughter. After we got home, I told her not to go to that playground for a while and to stay away from that boy. My daughter nodded. I didn't expect that a few days later, my daughter suddenly told me that she saw the boy leading the daughter of the bakery owner across the hall somewhere, but she didn't know where they went. She originally wanted to follow them, but remembered what I had said and didn't dare to. I knew the bakery was run by a mother and daughter, Han Yu and her daughter Xiao Qi, who was only 4 years old this year. I immediately called Han Yu, but no one answered the phone. About an hour and a half later, Han Yu burst into my shop like a madwoman. She grabbed my daughter and anxiously asked where Xiao Qi had gone. "Tell me, quickly!" My daughter was so frightened she could barely speak. I told Han Yu to call the police immediately, then went with her to search, but once we crossed the street, the trail went cold. The police were very efficient. Based on my description and nearby surveillance footage, they found the boy that very night. His name was Liu Qi. Liu Qi insisted that he hadn't abducted Xiao Qi, and his parents also lied for him, claiming their son had been home the whole time, but the police produced the surveillance footage and exposed their lies. Only then did Liu Qi stammer, "I'm not even 12 yet, so I shouldn't have to go to jail, right?" Liu Qi took us to an abandoned building and pointed to a small dirt pit saying, she's in there." The police rushed over, brushed away the soil, and found a foam box buried in the pit, the kind used for deliveries. They opened the lid and found Xiao Qi curled up inside. Her eyes were wide open, her mouth slightly agape, and her large eyes were filled with terror. Han Yu broke down on the spot. He lunged forward, trying to attack Liu Qi, but the police stopped him. The police asked Liu Qi to recount the entire process of the crime, and his account was so clear and detailed that it sent chills down my spine. Liu Qi said that after he discovered the small pit at the construction site, he got the idea to bury something alive in it. At first, he wanted to bury a stray cat, but the cat immediately ran out, so he failed. So, Liu Qi changed his target for live burial to a child. On one hand, little girls are less likely to resist, and on the other hand, their bodies are softer and easier to fold. "Did you kill the person first and then bury them?" I made them lie down by themselves. He set up a trick. First, he took 2 big cardboard boxes and had Xiao Qi lie inside, then gave her chocolate, making Xiao Qi think she was just playing a game. Later, he had Xiao Qi crawl into the foam box he had placed in the pit, and Xiao Qi didn't suspect a thing. And then? Then I covered it with a wooden board and buried it with soil. She called for her mom, called for help. After a while, there was no more sound. Han Yu didn't make it through listening to the whole process. He fainted. The police took him to the hospital for emergency treatment. I heard a few veteran officers say, after being police for so many years, "I've never seen anything like this in all my years. If I didn't know his parents, I would really want to beat him to death." After what happened to Xiao Qi got out, the neighbors all came to my door asking for Liu Qi's address, saying they wanted to stand up for the Han mother and daughter. But the privacy of juvenile offenders is protected by law, and the police told me I must not disclose any personal information about Liu Qi, or I would be held jointly responsible. A few days later, Han Yu came to my shop in tears, saying the police were about to drop the case. The reason? Liu Qi is under 12, so he has no criminal responsibility. The police could only close the case under criminal law. I was shocked. Liu Qi killed someone, but he doesn't have to go to jail or even go to court. How does that make sense? The police said that even if I went to the prosecutor's office myself, they wouldn't accept the case. At most, I could file a civil lawsuit demanding compensation from Liu Qi's parents, but who can give my daughter the justice she deserves? What made it even worse was that Liu Qi's parents didn't even bother to apologize, let alone offer compensation. Now, they won't even answer Han Yu's calls. Even when the police tried to mediate, they just said they were busy and didn't have the time or energy to deal with his wife. Out of pity, I made some soup for Han Yu. We're all mothers here. When certain tragedies happen, there's nothing anyone can do. You're still young. You can find someone else and have another child, but I just can't get past this. Every time I close my eyes, it's as if I can hear my child crying in front of me, saying he can't rest in peace. As parents ourselves, we could truly empathize with what Han Yu was going through, so we advised him to first bring his child's body home and take care of the funeral, and then think about pursuing legal action. I remember that day, at the memorial hall set up in Han Yu's old bakery, all the neighbors came. Han Yu didn't have many relatives, so when things got busy, my wife and I would help out. My daughter was playing alone at the door, so I called her over and told her not to run around. She nodded silently. I found it odd. Usually this little girl would talk back a bit, so why was she so obedient today? Then she opened her mouth and I saw chocolate on her teeth. Because she has serious cavities, we never let her eat sweets. I asked, "Did Auntie Han give this to you?" She replied, "It was a big brother who gave it to me." "Which big brother?" "The one who took Xiao Qi away." She said, "He told me Xiao Qi didn't finish these chocolates, so he gave them to me." I broke out in a cold sweat and hurriedly handed my daughter over to my wife. I told her to keep a close eye on our child and not let her out of her sight for even a second. I took a few people and searched the area, but there was no sign of Liu Qi. It seemed he had already run away. The more I thought about it, the more terrified I became. What if Liu Qi had taken my daughter and then found a pit to bury her too? I absolutely could not allow something like that to happen. That night, I secretly told Han Yu about Liu Qi coming to look for my daughter. Han Yu's eyes widened in anger, and he grabbed my arm, saying, "Next time, tell me sooner. I'll kill him." Looking at the black and white photo of Xiaoqi smiling with her little canine teeth showing, I silently made a decision in my heart. Do you really want revenge? I have a way, and I can make sure you won't have to go to jail. There was not the slightest hesitation in his words, and that was enough. So I let my daughter go about her daily play as usual, but in reality, I watched her closely from the shadows to ensure her safety. After keeping this up for almost a month, I finally spotted the sneaky Liu Qi appearing near the children's playground. I called my daughter and told her to head home immediately, and sure enough, he started following her. On a street without surveillance cameras, Liu Qi disappeared. The cameras didn't capture where he went, he simply vanished into thin air. In fact, after reaching the alley, my daughter took the initiative to approach him. She said she wanted to play house with him, but first she needed to go home and change into a pretty dress, and asked Liu Qi to wait for her in the abandoned old building nearby. After hearing this, a wicked gleam instantly appeared in Liu Qi's eyes. Without a second thought, he nodded in agreement. He really enjoyed the feeling of destroying a living doll. It gave him an indescribable thrill and satisfaction. Without a doubt, his daughter, dressed in a bright and beautiful princess dress, was the exquisite doll in his eyes. Liu Qi waited in the abandoned building for a long time. He had already explored every floor and even smashed all the discarded items inside, but his daughter still hadn't shown up. As night gradually fell and darkness set in, Liu Qi became a bit angry, thinking that the next time he saw his daughter, he would definitely teach her a lesson. But just then, an unexpected person appeared. Old Li. Han Yu startled Liu Qi, and just as he was about to shout, Han Yu covered his mouth. Very quickly, a powerful wave of drowsiness washed over him, and he fell into a deep sleep. When Liu Qi woke up, he was already in Han Yu's warehouse. Han Yu brought out a photo of Xiaoqi, lit an incense stick, and said, "Dear Qi's mother, today you can finally rest in peace." Liu Qi struggled and cried desperately, "Auntie, I'm just a child." Han Yu ignored him completely, grabbed Liu Qi, and walked toward the dough mixer. On the second day after Liu Qi disappeared, the police came to Auntie's shop, and there were 5 or 6 of them at once. I immediately rushed to the neighbors to get Han Yu to show up. Everyone felt very sorry for Auntie, and soon dozens of people gathered. If this turned into a mass incident, it would be a huge problem for the police, so all the officers on the scene were very alert and restrained. An older police officer with 2 stripes and 2 stars on his shoulder stepped forward. He said, "I understand how you feel, ma'am, but the police have to close a case strictly according to legal procedures. We have to follow the rules." But everyone was still very agitated, showing support for the shop owner and the injured, saying, "Don't be afraid. If anyone causes trouble for a good reason, we'll go with you to the police station every day to make a fuss." In the end, it was Han Yu who took the initiative to calm everyone down. "Thank you for looking out for me, but what happened to Xiaoqi wasn't the police's fault. In fact, they quickly found the culprit. I'm grateful to them. Let's disperse now and stop interfering with the investigation." Han Yu handled things well. Just a few words from him, and those willing to cooperate stayed behind. A positive image. Police officers are people too, and they can bring their own emotions into the investigation process. If they had just gone along with Han Yu, they wouldn't have dug deeper, and Han Yu would have gotten through smoothly. The veteran officer wiped the sweat from his brow. After entering the room, Han Yu exchanged a few pleasantries, then handed over a business card. Wu Zheng, Sai, looking for Xiaoqi. I was at the scene that day as well, and I am truly sorry for what happened to the child, but today, we're here about Liu Qi. Yesterday, we received a report from his parents saying their son is missing. I realized that Wu Zheng was lying. If they were really treating this as a missing person case, there would be no need to send so many police officers. They clearly suspected Han Yu of killing Liu Qi, and today they were here to search for evidence. Just as I was wondering how Han Yu would handle the situation, his response took me completely by surprise. He placed his wrist on the table and said, "That's right, I killed him too. Go ahead and arrest me." Both Wu Zheng and I showed looks of astonishment at the same time. "Miss Han, every word you say now carries legal responsibility. Do you really admit to murdering Liu Qi?" "Yes, I admit that I am a murderer. Please tell me, if I can't personally kill the person who murdered my daughter, then what meaning is there left for me to live?" Han Yu began to choke up, speechless and at a loss. Despite my surprise, I secretly admired Han Yu's cleverness. Her answer was even better than I had imagined. To be honest, it's almost impossible to deceive the police during an interrogation, especially experienced officers. They can catch a suspect lying from the tiniest details. So Han Yu taking the initiative is essentially throwing the question back to the police. "I'm telling you a fact, whether you believe it or not, is up to you." Wu Sheng clearly took Han Yu's words seriously. He thought Han Yu was just venting. He took out a notebook and began to ask Han Yu what she was doing at various times, trying to piece together a timeline. The police could deduce the exact time Liu Qi went missing based on surveillance footage, but that didn't help much. Because when Liu Qi went missing, Han Yu was in the shop the whole time, and many customers could vouch for her. What they didn't know was that Liu Qi didn't disappear right away, but instead chose to stay in a blind spot of the surveillance cameras for the entire afternoon. During this period, Han Yu was always in the shop, and many customers could confirm that. As for Wu Zheng, he came to the same conclusion. Han Yu did not have the opportunity to commit the crime. He took out a pair of medical rubber gloves. Ms. Han, if you don't mind, we'd like to take a quick look around your shop. Don't worry, we won't touch anything unnecessarily. The police immediately sprang into action, taking out more than a dozen evidence bags and collecting Han Yu's rolling pin, bread knife, and even butter knives. Basically anything that could possibly be used as a weapon, and put them all into the bags. One police officer carefully inspected places like the storage room, wardrobe, and refrigerator. Another officer used transparent tape to pick up hair and fingerprints from the floor, moving back and forth. Wu Zhang was particularly interested in the oven in the shop. He said he was from Xinjiang, and his family also had a similar oven, which they usually used to bake naan and stuffed buns, though theirs was much smaller. By the way, just to mention, what's the maximum temperature of this oven? Around 500 degrees. When I use it, I usually heat it up to a maximum of 300 degrees. Wu Zhang absent-mindedly nodded. I guessed he was probably calculating whether this oven could possibly be used as a tool for incinerating a corpse.